Yo, what's going on, guys? Chris Bond here, Overtime Athletes. A little bit of a whiteboard video for you guys today. As you know, I have new program Savage coming out pretty soon, so I wanted to address a question I commonly get. When it comes to bodybuilding, physique, you know, it's not the things that I really indulge in. I'm more about performance. However, I do know for certain athletes and athletes who want to look at certain part, I understand. And what I'd like to do is kind of take my stab at it because it is a common question I get. I always recommend, if you guys are looking for like doing a bodybuilding show, this is the wrong channel. However, if you're looking for more performance, which strength is one of those things, and you need to reduce some of your weight, I think I'm gonna take a stab at this video, and that's really what we're gonna go over is how to gain strength while cutting. Now, let me first say this before I get into this. As far as structuring your program, there's many different programs that could support you, and there's a lot of science backed by a lot of these programs. But essentially, once you get into that program, you'll realize it's different from everybody and how they recover. In addition to that, it is different to how you implement in the intensity that you approach the program or as you approach each training session. So it's important to take those things into consideration and how you're performing those and where the athlete is at right now. This athlete could be coming right off of off season, or if you're just somebody who likes to train and likes to train athletically, you could just be a weekend warrior who doesn't really have any competition. So there's so many variables that come into place when it has the proper programming when actually cutting. What I'll do is give you a sample of pre-cut or before you start to shed the body fat of where I kind of approach it. And I happened to be highly successful through the program I just built, which is Athlete Built Savage. And what I did was I noticed I'm not as lean as I particularly was. Maybe I'm holding a little bit more water. But what I did notice through this series was my absolute strength shot through the roof. When I did Athlete Built the first time, I noticed that, yes, I sculpted and I looked that great physique that I wanted. However, I dramatically lost my performance when it came to the overall power output and maximal force or overall resistance that I could overcome. So with this style of programming, what I realized was through some of my athletes and myself, I was able to still achieve some of that really good absolute strength. My power is through the roof because I'm at a reduced weight and I have that relative strength, tremendous compared to last time's Athlete Built. And that's really what this one's all about. So I'm gonna break this down into two parts, and bear with me, this will be a little bit long, but we're gonna have training and nutrition because obviously you need both when it comes to being able to, if you think you can not focus on one or the other while you're actually trying to reduce your weight and gain strength, you're wrong. But I'll break these down into two, and I'll break them down into essentially three phases. Really, this is the sweet spot down here, but I wanna let you know everything that I have going into it ahead of time. So when it comes to training, the first block or first phase of your training should consist around what I believe high intensity, moderate volume, and high frequency. Now, you could think of this as a general prep, but I don't like to say general prep because I'm gonna get picked apart with people saying, oh, how are you gonna throw high intensity out there right now? High frequency out there right now? Well, I wanna hit those particular body parts, push, pull, bend, squat, gate twist, and I wanna hit those multiple times throughout a training mesocycle, which is 1 week. And the reason why I wanna do this is because A, I wanna stimulate the nervous system as much as I possibly can in a strength manner. I'm also focusing on an eccentric portion. I've always talked to you guys about triphasic training. Make sure you look up Cal Dietz. I think it's one of the best resources out there. I'll continue to plug that away because I think that material is that good. And it's moderate volume. So I know we do typically a little bit more volume. However, this is more moderate volume in the beginning, and it's more about the actual strength lifts. And it really, so for instance, your bench, your deadlift, your squat, let's say you're focusing on those. I want to keep the volume pretty moderate as far as the auxiliaries, volume pretty low as far as the strength compound movements, right? And then I want to keep the frequency high, touch those multiple times throughout the week, turn the body on for a 45-minute training session, turn it off and recover, probably almost up to 6 days a week. That's really where what I did for Savage. Then as far as the nutrition side of things goes, This is the phase where you want to determine your baseline calories, right? You should basically do an audit of what you're eating within 7 days. You should take what you're doing within those 7 days and to develop a baseline. Now, a lot of you guys might throw in an online calculator and say, oh, I'm supposed to be eating based on my activity level 4,000 calories a day. Well, that's great that they have that number. However, if your body is consuming only 1,500 calories a day, right? And you try to blow up to 4,000 on the next day, your weight is gonna blow up as well. You want to determine your baseline and incrementally build up as you go and start to build up the calories to that and not just an overnight. Yes, you can flop to that 4,000 calories, gain the weight, and then start to taper off, but I think it takes a little bit longer. The best is to take what you're doing right now, develop that caloric base, and start to baseline that and incrementally build that up. The other thing is you want to switch or shift your macros around to fit performance, right? To overall fit strength. So for instance, if I'm eating 2,000 calories a day, but I'm eating a way amount of carbs and fat and low protein, we want to start to shift that to be able to utilize a little bit more or add a little bit more protein, maybe take away a little bit more fat, maybe keep the carbs where they're at so that we can overall focus on performance, so you can have the protein to be able to recover from the damage of the muscle tissue that you did from the training sessions. So it's important that we start to shift our macros to fit that performance. Now, don't get me wrong, certain athletes respond better with higher fats, higher carbs. That's for a different debate. Again, I'm just saying you should want to start to shift the performance that's best for you as far as supporting the performance, supporting that day in, day out grind of your training session. Next phase that we want to get into is going to be, again, high intensity, high volume, where now we're really trying to build that body up, and moderate frequency. So as opposed to touching it maybe twice a week, the week before you're touching it maybe once a week, right? Meaning like you're touching bench press once a week or maybe 2 times a week as opposed to 3. And that's where you start to drop the frequency of that actual movement that you're trying to gain strength in. You're going to up the volume, right? This was moderate volume. So now our body can handle a little bit more because we're also adding calories, and I'll get into that, but we're adding the volume and we're keeping it high intense. If I'm training bench press, I'm going to continue to stimulate my nervous system to get that strength and to get that maximal contraction out of that. As far as nutrition, like I said, we started at that 1,500 just as an example. By now, for the first phase, I got up to 2,000, 2,500. I want to continue to build that. And I want to continue to utilize those calories as fuel for my body, turn my body into a finely tuned instrument to be able to consume and utilize everything I'm putting into it as fuel, right? And that's really what those calories are doing by slowly incrementally or creeping them up. Finally comes your actual cut, right? So now that we've taken care of all this, we've gained a most maximum strength. Really what these 2 phases are, however you want to cut it, is we're gaining absolute strength here. I want you, whatever's best for your body. Like I said, certain athletes are better in other areas. For me, this is what I did and I got results. I did it with some of my athletes and I got results. You can't deny that. But like I said, there's so many other variables that come into place. But now that you have this overview or this baseline of what we were doing, we can then get into the actual cut when you guys are going to start to reduce your calories and maintain that strength, if not gain strength, right? So the workout, I want to continue to be high intensity. I want to drop the volume down so that every single repetition that we do is maximal effort and quality, right? So we're maintaining and really focusing on the movements that we need to while we're reducing our calories. And then it's low frequency. You should only be touching it 1 time a week. If I'm trying to focus on getting a bigger bench press, I only want to touch that 1 time a week during this actual phase and touch it. Make sure it's one of those things that is highly, the intensity is really high, and my intent of going in there is of a very intense workout. And then, like I said, low frequency. Now, nutrition aspect of cutting while you're trying to gain strength is the most important. This quadrant right here is the most important aspect of the actual maintaining strength or gaining strength. Now, as we've developed that baseline, we've ate for the past however long, those first 2 phases, we're up to a 3,000, 4,000 calories now. Now is when we can start to play and start to reduce. My body's used to eating 4,000 calories. When I drop it down 10 to 20%, right, that first week, you're gonna immediately start to see the weight start to shed off because your body's got so acclimated to eating a certain amount of calories and utilizing it for fuel that once you start to reduce, that fat will start to shed off, right? You're not feeding it as much anymore. So over the course of that week, you're gonna start to reduce that body fat. What I do here, the secret sauce that I do is during these first 2 phases, I don't introduce any supplementation. What supplementation is, what some people forget about supplementation is it's just supplementing the foods that you're putting into your body because you're not getting those particular things in your diet. So what I do is I deprive myself of supplements and I really focus on quality foods for these 2. Now that I'm reducing calories and I slowly start to drop it 10, 20% calories, staying in that performance macronutrient ratio, I start to add things such as recovery, glutamine, ZMAs, things that are gonna promote my recovery so that I can have that intensity for each training session. I also introduce a pre-workout, some kind of stimulant so that my intensity of my each and every workout is there. You guys ever taken off of like one of your pre-workouts and then all of a sudden 3 months later you introduce it again and you're like, holy shit, that was the best workout I ever had? That's what we're trying to do here. Post-workout, pre-workout and post-workout, I introduce creatine hydrochloride, not monohydrate. Monohydrate essentially retains water, hydrochloride doesn't. Now, there's obviously a lot of research that you guys can get into it. I'm not gonna get into that here. Make sure you check it out. In fact, there is a research study showing that athletes with injuries who consumed creatine overall retain more muscle mass than an athlete who didn't take creatine, okay? So that right there is the standard. And then creatine hydrochloride has a study out that says basically something along the lines of not retaining as much water. So you could get that physique you want while cutting, while still receiving the benefits of creatine and maintaining that strength. Really, creatine just transfers over to ATP and gives you more energy. Yeah, it's really just to give you more energy during your actual workout. So I add creatine. Other things that I might add is I might add fish oils. This is where I really start to supplement the things that are going to promote that strength within me, and I introduced them here. My body wasn't used to it up here, but then I introduced it while I'm starting to reduce my calories so that I can maintain that. And this is what I did in my program, Athlete Built Savage, to be able to get strong as I was when I was 225, 230 pounds, but also be in the physique of a 205 pounder when I cut down 15 pounds. Usually guys, when they lose 15, 20 pounds, they'll start to see the weight room numbers start to go. And to me as an athlete, it was a trade-off. It was like, I don't really care for six pack if I can't bench 315 pounds. It was, it was one of those things. So this was the way that I tried to go into the books, take pieces. Like I always say, I'm evidence-led, not evidence-based. So I don't just take what a research paper says and follow it to the T. I might utilize that, base it off my experiences and start to implement certain things. But I also take it as a holistic picture when it comes to this. And this is what really supported me to be able to get as strong as I wanted to while I'm still reducing and being able to get that physique I want. So I hope this helps you out. I know it's long-winded. I'm on one today. Love y'all. Holler at you next time.